the access to that kind of information. I mean, at best, some people might, study psychology 1 year or whatever at school, but there you don't, even there you don't learn, much about yourself or how you function or even how
Not at all.
how the mind functions or anything like that.
Not at all.
It's very little about that. So people have been, on one level, kind of denied all this information. So when it suddenly, comes to them in some way, either it's very terrifying for them, or they're just going to flat out, reject it and say, no, this is nonsense. We know what's going on now. We know how humanity functions and works. But again, it's all applied into this artificial system, I think, that is being overlaid upon ourselves. And I even can see to this day that we have artificial ways of kind of quieting your hunger, if you will, of the need to release the feminine and even you can see it actually a little bit, even if you think about what religion is doing now with the Knights Templar. I mean, it's a very kind of obscure connection, perhaps, but even the fact that they're trying to venerate, Mother Mary or Mary Magdalene a little bit now, you can kind of see that. Okay, there's a hunger,
Right.
a need for this some way within society, so we have to apply, or we have to provide rather, a kind of as an artificial thing for this, so people can worship that or look up to that. And even within advertisement, again, we can see some of these things always about the feminine is portrayed in a certain way. It's very very skilled. They're very skilled at all of this. So I mean,
Absolutely.
Yeah, continue.
Well, yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's you see it everywhere. You absolutely see it everywhere. But I mean, I think the number one thing that my work gets into is the fact that we were saying this earlier, that it's really there's nobody that we should pass the blame off to. I mean, even this this elite cabal at the top of this pyramid of power, these people at the top that we blame for absolutely everything, even when it comes to the George Bushes and the Clintons and the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers. When it gets into all these people, it's a very easy escape to blame them for what's happening, and it gives people the mindset that they need to fight this in some other manner. And in a lot of ways, it's true. I'm not saying that these things don't exist, but the number one thing is, it's still a perpetuation of not looking within at what it actually represents, because you can actually look at all these situations that are happening on an external level. You can really apply them to something that's going on within our psyche. I think you even mentioned it on one of the interviews you had with Michael Tsarion about how global warming is really representing a lot of what's going on within us.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And that's the number one thing I try to really really push is the idea of what is existentialism, the philosophy of taking complete and utter responsibility for everything that's going on. And a lot of people have a hard time with that because they see everything as separate. They see absolutely everything going on in the world as completely separate. So they have a hard time understanding the fact that we actually contribute to it in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and I think that's part also of the controlling agenda, to always put people in a position of victimhood. They're a victim to all the things that are going on externally, and the only savior from that can also consequently then be an external force, like a government, like a, whatever, insert whatever you want there. So it's very important what you mentioned here, that this is it's two ways. Obviously, it's something is going on in the material world. Things are happening there. It's also representative of kind of where the collective in a way are doing and what the collective are deserving in a way. And I personally believe that as an individual, you actually can, to some extent at least, distance yourself a little bit from what is going on in the mass of society, meaning that you actually can still live kind of on the borderline between society and a totally different world, and you can still be within the system of being subject to money, to still being hooked up to the electrical grid, what have you, have a house somewhere or an apartment, but yet not be so kind of drawn into what's going on in the external world and be so kind of affected by that. What do you think about that? Is that possible to do?
Oh, no, absolutely, absolutely. I think, The number one thing, I think probably the most important thing I could ever tell anybody about all of this is to completely define your terms, because obviously, especially in a left brain manner, we think in terms of language. So defining your terms of, why are we all here? Why are we actually listening to this program on Red Ice Creations? Why are we into this genre of information? It's because we're looking for one thing. We're looking for freedom. Now, whether freedom be on a global scale or whether it be freedom from the endless cycles of depression or anything that's going internal or external, we would like freedom, because true freedom, it allows us, I think, in Fight Club they said it the best, once you've lost everything, you're free to do anything.
Right.
It's this principle that shows that freedom isn't something that you attain. Like, that's the number one thing, is defining the term of what is freedom to you. Because a lot of people have this, preconceived notion that freedom is something that can be given to you and can be taken away from you. But the number one thing is, look at freedom as a concept. Concepts don't live in the physical world. They live within us, like love. Love, say, you love your parents or you love a significant other. How many Rothschilds would it take to beat that out of you? It doesn't matter how much they torture you. It doesn't matter what they're doing to you. There's no way that they can convince you to stop loving your significant other.
Right.
So it's the same thing with freedom. There's nothing in an external physical way that could ever happen to you to make you lose your freedom. The only thing that they can do is by convincing you that freedom is something that it truly isn't. Freedom is something that can be given to you. That's the number one thing that I see, the problem, that people just don't understand what true freedom is, because then when you truly define the term freedom, you'll understand that you've always been free. You wake up in the morning one day and you're like, wow, I've always been free, and the only reason, it's kind of like, that ironic moment where you laugh at yourself when you're running around the house looking for your sunglasses and they were on top of your head the entire time.
Right. Yeah.
And it's one of those things. And there's actually a little quote out of an Robert Anton Wilson book that I'd like to share with you.
Yeah.
Called Cosmic Trigger, because it points this out very well. It says that the great venerable Sufi sage Mullah Nasruddin once raced through Baghdad on his donkey, galloping as fast as the poor beast could travel. Everybody got excited, and the people rushed into the streets to find out why the philosopher was in such a great hurry. "What are you looking for, Mullah?" somebody shouted. "I'm looking for my donkey," he said. So the crowd, obviously, they became annoyed, and they entered their homes later that night all pissed off because they were waiting for some great philosophy, and they thought that they were just gypped. But Mullah was simply dramatizing the most common error of seekers after the cosmic secret. People who seek enlightenment or seek this, that, or the other. We look for the secret, the philosopher's stone, the elixir of the wise, the supreme enlightenment, God, true meaning, purpose. Why are we here on this earth? We look for this everywhere. Whatever the final answer may be, we look for it in all directions, north, south, east, and west, and all the time it's been carrying us about.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's the greatest way to say it, because it's really about letting things go. If freedom isn't something that you can attain, then what does that mean? What is that saying? It means that you have to let go of some of these preconceived notions, these morals that have been beat into our head in society, through culture, through our parents, our friends, our teachers. We need to let go of some of these prisons that are really just man-made. They're made around us with our mind and our concepts that we have of the outside world. It's something that we need to let go of to be free. And once you truly understand, like I said, define your terms. Once you truly define the term freedom and you realize what it is, then you'll realize that there's nothing that could happen in this external world that'll take away your freedom. So it's really just a matter of understanding what you're looking for. Because, if you don't really know what you're looking for, if you say you're searching for freedom, if you say you're searching for love, but you have no idea what love or freedom is, how are you going to recognize it? How are you even going to know when you find it? So I think that's the most important part about all of this.
Exactly. It's absolutely right. And even, as you say, defining the term, because I've been, giving that a whole lot of thought in regards to just the concept of freedom. What is it? Is it actually attainable as a human being? I mean, we are bound to certain rules. I can fly, by not using any tools like an airplane, what have you.
Right.
So I'm not free to do that because it's impossible for me to do it, at least at this point. And I'm bound to certain kinds of. I need to eat now and then. I need to go to the bathroom. There are needs kind of like this, meaning that I'm still subject to the control, as it were, to the external world. But that's nothing. It's nothing wrong with that. It's perfectly fine. But in that sense, if freedom is totally freedom, and meaning that I can do anything I ever wanted, whatever, I have to also recognize that I'm bound to a planet. I'm bound to this body as it is now. So for me, at least, the concept of freedom has kind of been taken down in that sense a little bit, and I have to realize that I have to recognize what I'm a part of and what I can do and can't do right here while I'm here on this planet. So I think you're right on there, and it's very important defining the terms and also understanding what the concept means to you, and if you can attain that or not. And if you can't, I mean, you could, why not make up your own term for it, whatever, and define it for yourself and go look for it.
Right, because all it truly is it's just understanding yourself a bit more. That's truly all it is. I mean, the term already exists within you. It's just being able to understand it. It's defining your terms is basically just a way of seeking, the answer that's already within you. Because that's another very important part of this is the fact that all the answers, all the knowledge, everything is within you. Really, everything in the external world is just a key to turn it on in a way. I mean, this is why I tell people, I don't belong to any denomination or anything like that. My Bible is every piece of text I could ever get my hands on. Yeah. Why limit myself to one book? Why limit myself to anything? Everything I've ever read from the day that I was born to today, everything that I've ever read is just information. There's nothing in it. I apply meaning to that stuff. Right. Like, I am the one who actually turns it into a philosophy that I can live by. I turn it into an ethic or something that I can live by. So everything that I've ever read in my entire life is my Bible. Every experience that I ever go through in my entire life is part of my meditation. It's part of my understanding. It's, the meditation of life, as you would say it. It's, everything. Why exclude anything? Because if I get a bad piece of information, it's my fault if I allow that to skew my concept of everything else that I've ever learned.
There you go. Very good way to put it. Exactly, because in the same sense, it's about always kind of collecting and you're shaping your worldview, you're shaping your idea of what life is about, and that's an individual thing, and that again goes back to the idea of control, of if we kind of tie this together with the other side, as it were, the people who want to control because they're afraid of letting people have their own worldviews. They always want to kind of narrow down access to information or what have you. And in many cases, this is about just opening the floodgates, let everything in, and not be afraid of where it might take you, because it's a interesting journey, and I in many cases kind of is a little bit put off, as it were, of many people that are into a lot of the so-called truth material or whatever, however you want to term it, because many people are also very kind of scared if you go into certain areas. If you can't talk about this, you can't talk about that, or whatever it might be. But for me, it's more like let everything go. I mean, if this movement, whatever that is anti-fascism, is anti-against control, then you shouldn't try to restrict people what they can read or even believe or feel. This has to be totally open, totally just let it all go. This isn't about control. This is about the opposite of control, flow. Right. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And it's another form of existentialism. You take responsibility for yourself and allow others to learn that they need to take responsibility for themselves. So you like you said, you really shouldn't be afraid of any information touching, anybody's ears. You really shouldn't be afraid of absolutely any of that, because a lot of the times, I think one of the biggest problems is when someone tries to release a certain type of more that they've been attached to for so long, when they try and get away from a certain type of